The desert wind arrived before the man did. It swept across the cracked earth in long, bitter breaths, rattling the shutters of Elena Vale's cabin and lifting spirals of dust along the empty trail. She paused at the doorway, one hand pressed to the rough wood, the other clutching the shawl around her shoulders. Something in the air felt changed, sharpened, as if the land itself remembered a name it had not spoken in years. Behind her, 8-year-old Noah sat on the floor beside the hearth, carving careful lines into a piece of cedar with a dull knife. His dark hair fell over his brow. His eyes, gray and steady, were fixed on the wood with the grave concentration of someone older than his years. "Stay inside," Elena said softly. He looked up. Someone's coming. She heard it then. Hoofbeats. Slow, heavy, unhurried. No rider used that trail unless they meant to come to her cabin. Elena stepped outside as the horse emerged through the dust. For one suspended moment, she saw only a broad shape, a hat brim, shoulders wrapped in travel-worn leather. Then the rider drew nearer, and the years between them split open like rotten timber. Takoda Gray Wolf dismounted without haste. He was leaner than memory, harder in the face, his cheek marked by a pale scar that ran from temple to jaw. But his eyes were unchanged, dark, watchful, and dangerous when wounded. Elena had dreamed of those eyes in loneliness, cursed them in grief, and buried them when word of his death spread through the valley. Now they were fixed on her, as if deciding whether she was flesh or ghost. "You live," she whispered. I had the same thought. His voice was low and roughened by distance. She tried to speak again, but no words came. For years of mourning could not prepare a heart for reversal. Takoda tied his horse to the post and glanced past her shoulder toward the cabin. "You built far from town. I learned to prefer silence. Silence can hide many things." The old warmth in his voice was gone. In its place stood suspicion sharpened by suffering. Elena felt it like a blade. From inside the cabin came the scrape of a chair. Noah had ignored her order. The boy stepped into the doorway, cedar carving still in hand. He stared at the stranger with frank curiosity. Takoda turned, and for the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Noah's chin lifted in the same defiant angle Takoda once wore before a fight. His brows were shaped the same. Even the stillness in the child's posture felt familiar. Takoda took one slow step forward. "How old is he?" Elena's throat tightened. 8. The man's gaze did not leave the boy. He counted backward through vanished seasons, through the final nights before war carried him away, through promises made under starlight. "That boy," his jaw clenched. "My son." Noah looked between them, confused. Elena's pulse hammered. She had imagined this moment in 100 forms, and every version ended in pain. She moved to stand beside Noah, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Do you truly believe your blood runs through him?" Takoda's eyes snapped to hers. "Answer me. You come after years of silence and demand truth as if time has waited for you." I sent word. No word reached me. Then someone kept it. He glanced toward the distant settlement, anger briefly flashing. "But the child remains." Noah stepped forward. "Who are you?" Takoda seemed struck by the question. For a heartbeat, the fierce warrior vanished, replaced by a man who had lost too much. "No one yet," he said. Elena felt tears threaten and hated them. "Go inside, Noah." The boy hesitated, then obeyed, though he left the door slightly open. Takoda lowered his voice. "If he is mine, I was robbed of years. If he is yours, I was robbed as well." He studied her face, perhaps searching for deceit, perhaps for the woman he had once kissed beside the riverbank. "People said you took another man. People speak because it is easier than kindness. Did you?" The bluntness of it stung more than accusation, shouted aloud. Elena straightened. "I did what I had to do to keep a child alive." His expression hardened. "That is not an answer. It is the only one you have earned today." For a moment she thought rage would take him. Instead he stepped back, folding pain into silence, so complete it frightened her more. He reached into his coat and drew out a small object wrapped in cloth. He tossed it onto the porch boards at her feet. She stared down at the beaded bracelet she had made for him before he left. I carried that through prison camps and graves, he said. Perhaps I should have buried it there. He turned toward his horse. Elena bent quickly, clutching the bracelet. Takoda. He paused but did not face her. The truth is not simple. Truth usually is, he said. Lies are what requires stories. He mounted in one fluid motion. Noah's voice came from the doorway. Are you coming back? Takoda looked at the boy for a long, unreadable second. Something flickered in his eyes. Hunger, grief, hope denied. Yes, he said at last. I think I must. Then he rode into the dusk, leaving dust, silence, and a question none of them could escape. Morning came gray and windless, as though the desert itself were holding its breath. Elena had not slept. She moved through the cabin in weary silence, feeding the fire, kneading dough, straightening objects that needed no straightening. Every corner carried the echo of the man who had stood there the day before. She had buried Takoda Gray Wolf once. Seeing him alive had unearthed everything grief had failed to kill. Noah sat at the table, chin in his hands. Will he come back today? He asked. Elena kept her eyes on the dough. Eat first. That is not an answer. She almost smiled. The boy had inherited stubbornness from someone. I do not know. Noah studied her carefully. He had learned young that adults often hid truth inside softer words. Did you know him before? Yes. Is he dangerous? She paused. Sometimes. Did you love him? The question landed cleanly, without cruelty. Children often struck deepest because they aimed nowhere but honesty. Elena set the dough aside. Once. Noah absorbed that in silence. Then do you still? Before she could reply, hoofbeats sounded outside. Her pulse jumped, but the rhythm was wrong. Lighter, quicker, careless. She knew the rider before the knock came. Samuel Reed entered without waiting to be invited. He wore polished boots dusted by the trail and a dark coat too fine for honest labor. His smile arrived before his words, practiced and empty. You look tired, Elena. You should have stayed in town. Samuel removed his gloves slowly, glancing around the room as though inspecting property. News travels fast. A dead warrior rides home, and suddenly every gossip in the valley finds religion. Noah stiffened at the stranger's tone. Samuel noticed and softened his voice at once. Morning, boy. Noah did not answer. Elena stepped between them. Say what you came to say. Samuel's pleasant mask thinned. Takoda Gray Wolf is trouble. Men like him return with old claims and sharp knives. He came with questions, and you are poor at answering them. Samuel's eyes drifted toward Noah, particularly the important ones. The room chilled. Years ago, when hunger had become a daily visitor and winter threatened to finish what loneliness began, Samuel had offered help. Flour, wood, protection from those who despised a woman living alone with a child of uncertain parentage. He had never given anything freely. Every sack of grain came tied to expectation. Elena had accepted survival and paid with dignity. You will not speak of Noah as if he were livestock, she said. Samuel smiled again, but there was iron beneath it. The town knows him as mine. I allowed that story because it sheltered you. You spread that story because it pleased you. It kept wolves away and invited one inside. His jaw tightened. Noah rose from the table. I am not yours. Samuel looked amused. Children know little of such matters. I know enough. Elena touched Noah's shoulder, proud and alarmed at once. Samuel disliked defiance in any form. He leaned closer to her. Control the boy, and control the Apache. If Takoda starts digging through the past, unpleasant things may surface. What things? The kind that make neighbors choose sides. Before she could press him, he tipped his hat and left, carrying menace as casually as perfume. Noah waited until the hoofbeats faded. I hate him. Hate is heavy, Elena said quietly. Do not carry what you need not. But he lies. Yes, she said, that he does. By midday, Noah asked to gather kindling, and Elena let him go only after making him promise to stay near the creek. She needed a moment alone with fear. She found Takoda before he found her. He stood beyond the cottonwoods, crouched beside the stream, studying marks in the mud. A snare line lay coiled at his feet, expertly tied. You still track like a ghost, she said. He rose without surprise. And you still approach louder than you think. For a heartbeat, old ease almost returned. Then caution settled between them again. You watch my cabin. I watch the man who left it. Samuel. Takoda's mouth hardened around the name. He rides as if he owns what he passes. He believes ownership is the same as affection. And you let him near you. I'll let him near food. There's a difference. Takoda looked at her then, truly looked, and saw the thinness hardship had carved into her face. The guardedness years had taught her spine. His anger faltered. I searched for home, he said quietly. I found chains instead. She had not expected confession. Where were you? Captured after the raid. Moved camp to camp. Men died nameless beside me. He glanced at the water. I lived because I refused to believe everything waiting here was gone. Elena's eyes stung. It was gone for me. Silence moved between them. No longer hostile, only bruised. Across the creek, Noah emerged from brush carrying a bundle of sticks. He froze when he saw Takoda, then approached slowly. I found tracks, the boy said. Rabbit, maybe. Takoda knelt to the prints Noah indicated. Too wide for rabbit. Fox. Noah's face lit with interest. How can you tell? The rear step falls narrow. See, he guided the child's gaze, patient and instinctive. Elena watched something impossible take shape. Not proof, not pardon, but connection. Noah glanced up. Will you teach me more? Takoda hesitated. Years of loss warred with one moment of longing. If your mother agrees, he said. Elena met his eyes. Tomorrow. Takoda nodded once. As Noah walked ahead proudly, Takoda moved beside Elena. Samuel is afraid. He should be. No, Takoda said. Afraid men are dangerous because they strike first. Elena followed his gaze toward the distant town road, where a lone rider stood watching from a ridge before turning away. Samuel had not finished with them. Dawn broke cold and bright across the valley, painting the earth in pale gold. Noah was awake before the sun cleared the ridge. He waited outside the cabin with a length of twine tied around his belt and a stick he had sharpened into what he believed looked like a hunter's spear. Elena watched him from the doorway. You have worn a path in the dirt, he said, mourning. He may still come. He will. Noah replied with a certainty she envied. Takoda arrived on foot, silent as drifting smoke. Noah grinned so quickly that even Takoda seemed startled by the welcome. You came. I said I would. He carried no rifle, only a knife at his belt and a coil of rope over one shoulder. To Elena, the choice mattered. A man expecting war armed differently than one teaching a child. They crossed the scrubland beyond the creek, where animal tracks webbed the soft ground. Takoda showed Noah how to read the marks. The split hoof of deer, the padded round print of coyote, the wing drag of a ground bird startled into flight. Noah listened with fierce concentration, repeating each lesson until he got it right. Elbows loose when you throw, Takoda said, correcting the boy's stance. Like this. Less force. More aim. Noah threw the stick again. It landed crookedly several paces farther. Takoda's mouth twitched. Better. Elena, seated on a rock nearby, with mending in her lap, felt an ache she could not name. She had raised Noah alone so long that seeing him guided by another hand felt both beautiful and cruel. When the lesson ended, Noah ran to the creek to fill a canteen. Takoda remained where he stood, eyes on the horizon. You handle him gently, Elena said. He is not something to handle. She accepted the rebuke. You know what I mean. I know he watches everything. Children who grow in uncertainty learn that habit. The words were plain, but regret moved beneath them. Elena set aside the cloth in her lap. Then know this also. He has lacked many things, but never love. Takoda turned toward her. Love without truth leaves hunger, and truth without mercy leaves ruin. For a moment, they stood inside the old rhythm of argument, each knowing where the other would strike. Yet neither seemed eager to wound. Before either could speak again, hoofbeats thundered across the hard ground. Samuel Reed rode toward them with two men trailing behind. He dismounted before the horse had fully stopped, confidence sharpened by the audience he brought. "Well," Samuel said lightly, "a family outing." Noah returned at once to Elena's side. Takoda's posture changed so subtly only she noticed. Stillness became readiness. "You should leave," Elena said. Samuel ignored her. He held a folded paper in one gloved hand. "I visited the magistrate in town this morning. Thought it wise to settle confusion before gossip grows legs." He opened the document dramatically. Recognition of guardianship and paternal claim over the boy Noah Vale, witnessed and sealed. Elena's stomach dropped. Samuel had friends wherever money could buy signatures. "You forged it," she said. "I arranged it." Takoda stepped forward. "Paper does not make blood." "No," Samuel replied, glancing at Noah. "But absence can erase it." The blow landed where intended. Takoda's jaw tightened. "Say what you came to say." "With pleasure. The boy has known my name, my provision, my protection. You return after years in the dirt and expect what exactly? Gratitude. I expect you to stop speaking." Samuel smiled thinly. "Or what?" The distance between them vanished in a blink. Takoda seized Samuel by the coat front and drove him against the saddle. One of the hired men reached for a gun, but Elena stepped between them with Noah behind her. "No," she shouted. Takoda held Samuel pinned, fury raw in his face. Samuel, though pale, managed a sneer. "See? Savage first, reason never." "Enough." Elena's voice cut sharper than either man's. Takoda released him with contempt. Samuel stumbled back, straightening his coat. She faced Samuel. "Take your paper and go. It remains valid. It remains filth." Samuel's eyes narrowed. "Choose carefully, Elena." Town doors closed quickly. They were never open. For the first time, he had no graceful reply. He mounted, signaled his men, and rode off, though not before sending Takoda a promise of future malice with a single glance. Noah looked up at Elena. "Can paper truly decide a father?" "No," Takoda answered before she could. His voice was rough but steady. "Only cowards hope it can." The boy nodded, as if storing the lesson with the others. That night the wind rose. Noah slept early, exhausted by excitement and fear. Elena found Takoda sitting beyond the cabin near a small fire, staring into flames that bent low beneath the gusts. She sat opposite him. "You should not have touched him," she said. "I know. He wanted that. I know that too." The fire cracked between them. After a long silence, Elena spoke the truth she had delayed too long. "I never lay with Samuel." Takoda did not move. "I accepted food, shelter when winter came. I accepted rumors because they kept harder men away. But I never loved him, and I never share his bed." Takoda's eyes lifted slowly to hers. "Noah was conceived before you vanished," she continued. "In the last week before the soldiers came." Pain crossed his face, not from doubt now, but from all the years stolen by it. "Why tell me now?" "Because dead men do not come home," she whispered. The harshness left him all at once. He reached across the fire, not touching her, but close enough that warmth bridged the space. From inside the cabin came Noah's sleepy voice. "Takoda." They both turned. The boy stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Will you still teach me tomorrow?" Takoda looked at Elena, then at the child. "Yes," he said quietly, "tomorrow." But beyond the ring of firelight, unseen by them, a horse shifted in the darkness. Samuel was listening. The cabin door stood open. Elena saw it from halfway up the trail and dropped the basket of wash at her feet. Cloth spilled into the dust, forgotten at once. The morning had been clear when she left for the creek. Noah had been inside, still drowsy, and Takoda had gone to check the snares beyond the ridge. Now the door swung slowly on one hinge. Elena, Takoda, came running from the east slope, already reading danger in her face. They reached the threshold together. The room was overturned. A chair lay broken near the hearth. Noah's wooden carving knife was on the floor. The blanket from his bed had vanished. Elena's breath turned shallow. "Noah." No answer came. Takoda crouched beside the doorway. In the dust were fresh boot marks, deep and hurried. Beside them, the smaller drag of a child resisting. "Samuel." Takoda rose with a calmness more frightening than rage. When I was gone less than an hour, he was already moving. Get my horse. I'm coming. You slow me if I must guard you too. She stepped close enough that he had to meet her eyes. That is my son. A beat passed. Our son, he said, and the word struck through her panic like light. They rode hard into the canyon country, where stone walls narrowed the wind and held sound like secrets. Takoda followed the trail at speed, reading broken brush, a dropped strip of blanket, the skid of hooves on shale. Elena clung behind him, praying with every breath. By noon, they found Samuel's horse tied below an abandoned mining shack wedged between cliffs. Takoda dismounted silently. Stay behind me. No. Then stay alive. He drew his knife and approached the shack. Elena circled wide, heart pounding so violently she could hear nothing else. Inside came Noah's voice, thin but defiant. I hate you. Samuel laughed. Hatred is wasted on men who win. Takoda kicked the door inward. The room froze. Noah sat bound to a post, wrist tied, but chin lifted stubbornly. Samuel stood beside him with a pistol in hand. Sweat darkened his collar. Fear had sharpened him into recklessness. I wonder how long, Samuel said. Takoda stepped inside. Untie the boy. You first mistake me for a fool. You needed no help there. Samuel smiled tightly. Still proud. Even now, Elena entered behind Takoda, and Noah's eyes filled with relief. Mama, I'm here, she said, though she could not reach him. Samuel shifted the pistol toward Noah's shoulder. One more step from either of you, and the child pays for your courage. Takoda stopped. What do you want? Elena asked. Samuel looked at her as if insulted by the question. What I built. I fed him, protected you, gave your nameless life standing. You gave chains and called them gifts. I gave what women always ask for, security. No, she said coldly. You gave what cowards offer when love is beyond them. His face flushed. Takoda used the moment. This ends now. Samuel barked a laugh. Ends? Look at him. He jerked his chin toward Noah. Whether your blood runs in the boy or not means nothing. Years obey the man who stayed. Noah spoke before anyone else could. I never chose you. The words hit harder than any blow. Samuel's hand trembled. He swung the pistol toward the child in blind anger. Takoda moved. He crossed the space like released thunder, striking Samuel's wrist aside as the gun fired into the ceiling. Elena lunged for Noah while the two men crashed against the wall. Dust rained from the rafters. Takoda fought with brutal precision. No wasted motion, no shouting fury. Samuel swung wild and desperate. Takoda drove him backward, disarmed him, and pinned him to the floor with a forearm across his throat. Samuel clawed at him. Do it, he rasped. Kill me like the savage they named you. Takoda's eyes were black with wrath. Elena feared he might. Then he looked at Noah, who stood free now, rubbing raw wrists. Takoda released Samuel and stepped back. Noah will remember what I choose today, he said. I will not give him your shape of manhood. Samuel coughed, stunned more by mercy than violence. Leave this valley, Takoda said. If I see you again, mercy may have traveled elsewhere. Samuel staggered to his feet, snatched neither gun nor pride, and fled. The shack fell quiet except for Elena's sobbing breath. Noah ran to Takoda first. The boy threw his arms around the man's waist with the total trust children reserve for those who have earned it suddenly and completely. Takoda stiffened, then folded around him, one hand trembling at the back of Noah's head. I was scared, Noah admitted. I know. Did you come because I'm your son? Takoda looked at Elena over the child's shoulder. Years of doubt, grief, anger, and longing passed in that glance. I came because you are mine, he said. Blood or no blood. Elena reached into her dress and removed the leather cord she had worn hidden beneath her collar for 8 years. From it hung Takoda's beaded bracelet, wrapped around a tiny copper charm. I tied this to Noah when he was born, she whispered. I kept it because there was never any doubt. Takoda stared at the keepsake, recognition breaking him open. He knelt before Noah. Then hear me clearly, little hunter. Noah's eyes widened. My son. The boy smiled through tears. Outside, the storm clouds that had gathered all morning finally broke, sending rain across the canyon in silver sheets. They stepped into it together, Elena, Noah, and Takoda, washed clean beneath a sky that had at last decided to give something back.